Hey, and welcome to the Leniverse. I am Leni, and this is my Science Fiction September wrap-up video. At last, in the second half of October. I bet you've all been waiting with bated breath, right? I didn't get through my whole science fiction TBR for September. My book reading took up a bit too much time, but I did get a decent amount of science fiction read. I have continued a series. I have started a new series. I have read a book by a favorite author. I have read a book by an author that was new to me. I have read a classic, and I have read an internet phenomenon. And I have also read a work of literary fiction that was at least science fiction adjacent. So let's go in order. First, I read the novella The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin, who is one of my favorites. The only thing I knew about this book before I read it was that the movie Avatar basically plagiarized the plot of this book. And by that I mean not Avatar The Last Airbender, I mean Avatar, the one with the blue-skinned aliens. In this book they are not blue-skinned, they are furry and green and about high, so they are basically green Ewoks. Le Guin wrote this during the Vietnam War, and it is very much a work about the effects of colonialism, but also about the effects of armed resistance. The aliens in this book are they don't just look like teddy bears, they are pacifist by nature. The idea of actually harming another sentient being is to them a mad idea. Anybody who could do that is mentally ill. They also have some other differences to humans. They are a lot more nocturnal than we are, and they don't have a long stretch of time when they need to sleep. They sleep in shorter periods, in dream cycles, and they need to do this multiple times during a day and night cycle. And they also do a lot of what appears to be like awake dreaming or meditation. The humans who have arrived to get the resources of the planet are supposed to leave the indigenous population alone, but they have instituted what they call voluntary labor, which is anything but voluntary. They are basically enslaved and made to work according to a human routine, which messes up their sleep pattern and makes them ill. In addition, they are being brutalized, raped, murdered, with impunity. And eventually even the pacifist dreamers have had enough. This is not just a story about the evils of exploitation and colonialism, it also shows the devastating effects that armed resistance can have on people. Because how do you go from being a completely pacifist and thinking that all violence is insanity to having to fight and kill for the survival of your species? You don't do that without it having a significant negative effect on you. Ursula Le Guin wrote this during the Vietnam War. It is disturbing how relevant it still is in many ways. The one negative thing that I can feel about this book is that one of the characters, the first character that you're introduced to, is quite one-dimensional. He is just evil. And Le Guin writes in the introduction to this book that she doesn't actually believe in pure evil. She believes that in shades of grey. But that clearly her subconscious does believe in evil, and that's how this character came out on the page. And as she was writing it in a situation of like much despair, where a lot of the more horrific reports from the Vietnam War had come out, I can sympathize with her subconscious. And at any rate, that's just one character. There are other human characters in here that are much more nuanced. So that was the first book. After that, I read Contact by Carl Sagan. It's very strange because I have these images in my mind of having seen the movie, but they're all images from the early parts of the book, maybe the first half. And that part is pretty mundane. It's Jodie Foster in the movie, It's about her childhood and her interest in science and running a program where they are listening for signals from space to see if they can detect messages from other sentient beings. The second half of the book, after they actually receive a signal, things get kind of funky. They get weird towards the end. And it's strange to me that I would have no recollection of this and only from the more ordinary parts, earlier parts, which makes me think that I probably didn't see the whole movie. I don't know why. But at any rate, I have read the whole book now, so I do have the full story. And I quite enjoyed the story of how the main character, born in the 60s, I think, 1960s, and growing up and having an interest and ability in mathematics and science in a time when women were not really encouraged to follow that career path. I also like the idea of the signal coming from space and having to decode it and finding a way to, how do we communicate with a different species? How do we, what is universal? In what way can a message can come across and be interpreted? Some things that were a bit strange was that the book runs up to, I think, the end of the 1990s. So that's like the millennium crisis and lots of the strange ideas that people had about the new millennium. But in this book, they have technology that we still don't have in the 2020s. Rich people living in sort of colonies orbiting the planet. But on the other hand, they still have the Cold War and the Soviet Union. But where it really got weird for me was the religious content. Not the fact that there was religious content, because again, we are approaching the millennium and there's a signal being received from space. Of course, that would make people wonder and consider their religious beliefs. Now, what was weird to me was how it seemed like America was basically the only Christian nation in the world, and they are all evangelicals. The Soviet bloc in China are atheist because of for political reasons, and Europe appeared to be atheist for reasons not given. There's a character from India who is a Hindu. She has some religious beliefs, and they are a bit concerned about the Muslim world, hoping that there will be nothing in this message that would be seen as offensive to them, like imagery. And the religious debate seemed to mostly revolve around, well, clearly this is proof of God, this message must be a message from our Creator. Or on the other hand, oh, this message must be a message from the devil and we shouldn't listen to it, it's trying to lead us astray and we should just destroy all listening equipment and not try to decode it. And that's a pretty banal and basic religious debate. And of course, the third side of this is God or the devil has nothing to do with it. And this religious debate is spearheaded by two American TV preachers. One of them is a bit fire and brimstone, and the other one actually used to be a sideshow act at a circus until he had a near-death experience, literally saw the light and started studying the Bible and preaching. And these two preachers are both really popular. And I can see that, but I also wonder why they are the only ones who have a religious opinion about this. There are a lot of Catholics in America, so where is the Pope? And for that matter, where are the other Protestants? Where are people with a background in theology? Not that self-taught preachers can't be very knowledgeable. I'm from a Lutheran country, so I firmly believe in everybody's right to read and interpret the Bible and have a personal relationship with God, which is not the same as saying that we should listen to TV preachers. But I think if there was ever a case where a ecumenical panel of the world's religions should come into play, then, a signal from space would be it. And that never happens. Carl Sagan has a slightly more sophisticated solution or ideas that come into play, but I can't help feeling that they are only more sophisticated and also maybe quite controversial because the general level of religious debate in the book is so basic. I think that maybe what he is trying to say in this book is that science and religion doesn't have to be polar opposites. Because if you do believe that the Earth is only 8,000 years old or whatever, and that it's flat, then that's not really compatible with science. But there are a lot of scientists who have deeply held religious beliefs and who feel that every scientific discovery that's made only serves to highlight the glory of our creator. On the other hand, Carl Sagan's main character starts out as atheist and then becomes sort of gradually more agnostic, maybe. So, on the other hand, I guess he's also trying to point out that there is actually room for the numinous in science. So yeah, other than that, I quite like the book. Seems maybe a bit strange to spend so much time just talking about this aspect of the book that I'm quite critical to, but it is something that bothered me as I read it. I wanted the religious debate to be a bit more nuanced. So, after Contact, I read How I Won a Nobel Prize by Julius Tarano. This is literary fiction, but it's at least science fiction adjacent. The science element is in I remember all these old spy thrillers where people were trying to do cold fusion in order to get unlimited energy, and that's a concept that just it doesn't work. It's impossible. And I think we all know that by now, so they have to move on to something else, something that sounds more doable. And in this book, it is superconductors. And Tarano does go into the science a fair bit, and my science, I don't have a science background. It all seemed plausible enough for me, but also not so complicated that I couldn't, follow along. So the basic idea is that whenever we conduct energy, some of it is lost. No matter how much you insulate whatever, material, cable, or whatever that you are transporting the energy to, some of it will leak out or, I guess, be lost to friction. Superconductors can transport a lot more energy without practically anything getting lost. And there are some superconductors. The problem is that they only work in extremely cold temperatures, so it's not really practical. It's pointless. There might as well not be superconductors. If you could get superconductors to work on the more normal temperatures, then you would basically solve the whole energy crisis. And the main character in How I Won a Nobel Prize is a PhD student who is working on exactly this. She's mostly doing coding. She's writing a computer program that is supposed to analyze and come up with every material and what temperatures they can be used as superconductors. That's my basic understanding of it. And there are, in the book, 3 people who have done work on this before, preliminary work. They won a Nobel Prize for it. One of them is her supervisor I think they're at Yale University. The other is dead, and the third is in China and speaks only Mandarin. So her supervisor is basically the one and only person that she can work with on this. Unfortunately, he has embroiled himself in a scandal where he had a relationship with an inappropriate relationship with one of his students, and also made promises to further this student's career. So when this scandal breaks, he offers to resign from the university. And he has an offer to go somewhere else, because just off the coast, there is an island, a private island, bought by a multi-billionaire entrepreneur. And he has built his own university on there. He's built it, and it's huge building that's so very, very obviously a symbol compensating for something in his masculinity. And this is the island where everybody who has been cancelled go. Some of them are women, but most of them are men, and female undergraduates are promised good scholarships if they will only come, to try to sort of even out the gender balance a bit. They're also told to just bring maize in their handbag, because so many of the men who live there are creeps. The main character figures she will be quite safe there, because most of the time she's not even seen as female. When she's in the groove, she just walks the corridors talking to herself, wearing a lab coat, and she hasn't showered or brushed her hair for a week. She's also married, so it's one thing for her to decide that the chance of actually saving the world is worth having to move to this island. Her husband is very supportive of her work, but he also hates everything that the island and the island's owners stand for. But he's willing to come with her, but he says that to balance out the evil of living on this island, they have to make a moral sacrifice, so they have to both be vegan as they are there. This book is really funny. It takes both sort of cancel culture and laissez-faire attitude, where the work is all that matters. It takes them both to kind of two extremes. And it does it in a quite funny way, but it also poses some pretty serious questions, like how many of your principles are you willing to break for the chance to literally save the world? How many evils do you turn a blind eye to in order to achieve a greater good? And so on. This is a debut, and I'm very impressed with it, and I am really looking forward to whatever Julius Tarano writes next. After all that science, I decided I needed something that was less science heavy, a bit cozy maybe. So that was a good time to continue the Wayfarer series by Becky Chambers. So I read the third book, which is called Record of a Spaceborn Few. It has great world building, great character development. I really enjoyed getting to know them. It has science, but it doesn't go into the scientific explanation of it. Right? They have artificial gravity, which it doesn't try to explain how it works. When I got to about 60% into the book, I started to think that, okay, this is nice and I do like the characters and everything, but I would like a little bit of plot now, please. Then, unfortunately, I got the plot and I regretted making the wish, because it was really, really sad. I thought this was supposed to be cozy. And I do think, there was some sad stuff in, at least in the first book, but not as sad as this. It ended up actually breaking my heart. This is not a negative review. So I have one book left in that series, and I'd kind of figured I'd read it in December, because that's not a good time for a cozy book. But December is not really a good time to be heartbroken, so I don't know. We'll see. Maybe one of you can tell me if the final book in the Wayfarer series is going to make me sob into my mince pies. Okay, the third book didn't make me sob, but it did hit me hard. After that, I read two books that were quite strange. The first one is a fairly short one. It's Ice by Anna Kavan. I have here a very nice sort of a mini cloth bound edition. The book starts out very atmospheric, a bit spooky even. There's a man who's returned from having been deployed abroad, and he really wants to see this a female friend, an ex-girlfriend. And he's driving out to where she lives, and she lives deep in the woods. As he's driving through, it's like everything is desolate. There used to be villages, but they've all been abandoned. And he stops at a station to refuel his car, and is warned by the attendant there that the weather is turning and you really shouldn't carry on. And also is being left with this final warning of beware the ice. But of course he decides to keep driving. And this is like, oh, well, sure, this will end well. It seems very spooky. But then from there it becomes an absolute fever dream of a book. There is some sort of disaster going on. The government is trying to control information, and this was written in the 1960s. There's no internet, right? So they can control what information is coming in. So people are not really sure if there's been like a nuclear disaster somewhere, or if it's like a climate change. But ice is creeping in, and society is becoming more and more fascist, controlling. You have to be really careful what you say. You're not allowed to talk about the ice. You're pretending it doesn't exist. But also the main character seems to have these hallucinations or I don't know. It becomes increasingly difficult for both the main character and for the reader to distinguish what is true and what is false. What he does, he keeps chasing after this woman who he is sure needs to be rescued. Everything is really eerie, and this woman is on the move. She clearly does not want to be found by him, but he insists on chasing after her to save her. And it gets so weird. Personally, I loved it. I love the gloominess and the weirdness and the brutality, and just the prose is excellent. But I don't think I would recommend it to just anyone. You need to like weird fiction. This is weird on the level that China Mebel is weird. At his weirdest, even. And I find that quite impressive. She's basically written a book in the new weird genre decades before the new weird genre was invented. And then I now have 2 books left to talk about. And so next up is the internet phenomenon. And the book is called There Is No AntiMemetics Division. And it was written by somebody whose internet name is Quantum. So this book is actually part of an online cooperative writing project called SCP Foundation. It has its own wiki, and it also became a computer game. SCP stands for Secure Containment Procedure. And the idea here is that basically various sort of memes and urban legends, ideas become tangible. They are monsters in a way that we often can't see, but they affect us. And this the foundation is created to contain the dangerous ones before they cause too much damage or even like wipe out humanity. And the AntiMemetics division deal with the anti-meme, the anti-ideas. How do I even explain this? The AntiMemetics, they can make you forget. They will absorb your memories. They will make you forget that they were ever there. They are a threat on a very different level from dangerous ideas, because it's an idea that you don't remember that you had. And so the book is a series of case files that you can also find on the wiki, on the website. And it follows the leader of the anti-memetic division as others forget that she exists. She forgets basically what she's doing. A normal day in an agent life is that you have to take pills to help you remember and pills to help you forget. And sometimes your memory will get wiped and your whole personality is gone, and you have to sort of bootstrap yourself back together and remember what's going on. It's extremely weird and very entertaining, and you can read everything for free on the internet. And then finally, I started a new series, the Expanse series by James S.A. Corey. The first book there is called Leviathan Wakes. I haven't finished this book yet because I ran out of September and then I had some other books to read, so I had to sort of put it on hold. I am curious to find out where it's going, and I like it enough that I will probably continue with the series, especially since I have 2 more books. But it's clearly not entirely unputdownable. So in this series, humanity has colonized not the stars, but the solar system. We've managed to develop near light speed and the drugs to keep us alive at those kinds of speeds. I'm not quite sure I'm buying that, but it's fine. I'll go with it. So there are people on the various, like the moons of the gas giants. There are people living on asteroids in the asteroid belt, and of course on the inner planets, at least on Mars. And there's a conflict between the inner planets, basically Earth and Mars and the moon colony, and then you have the outer planets, which are kind of being exploited for resources through heavy tariffs, and all the big technological developments seem to be run by Earth and Mars, who are competitors in this, what we can't even call a space race. It's basically in the economy. And at the start of the book, there's a ship that's been boarded by pirates, and weird stuff happens. Everybody's dead except for one person, and then later on, when this ship is found, that person isn't on there. So we kind of spend the entire book wondering what happened to that person, what actually happened to the ship. There's an outer planet transport ship that's being attacked by a ship with technology that can only have come from Mars or Earth, and machine parts that have been found indicate that they are from Mars. So we follow some of the survivors from that were attacked by this ship that may or may not have been from Mars. And you also follow a policeman down on one of the asteroids, as they are trying to keep the peace as chaos erupts, because it seems that there will be a war between Mars and the outer colonies, the outer planets. And the question is, of course, is Mars doing this? Is it perhaps Earth who's trying to blame Mars, and then they are sitting back going, we're not getting involved, and they are waiting for them to like wipe each other out? Or is there something else going on? There seems to be a lot of political players, and some of them are new and some of them are unknown, and I am not sure what the end goal is. It's the kind of space opera that I like. I like my science fiction to be a bit political. I think maybe I am a little bit weirded out by the whole like noir feel of the policeman on the asteroid. But I will definitely continue with the book. And unless I'm really unhappy with the ending, I will continue the series as well. It's a 9-book series, so I think it's okay for the first book to sort of take a while to build up a narrative. Okay, that was my science fiction September. I had fun with that. I wish I'd actually had the time to read more, and I will have to try to get some science fiction worked into every month of the year, really. But for now, it is horror. And I do feel like both ICE and There Is No AntiMemetics division are good sort of segues into the month of horror. I have done a TBR for the spooky month, and I will be back, well, at some point in November, I guess, to let you know how that reading went. Would love to hear if you read any science fiction, any good science fiction, any bad science fiction in September. And also, thank you for watching my video.